So, the word team, according to my little dictionary, means two or more people working together. Pretty straightforward, I can get my head around that. So teamwork, an extension of team. The combined action of a group of people, especially when effective and efficient. This is the dictionary's bias. I don't think all teams are necessarily effective and efficient, not in my experience. And then I started thinking about family. And to me, it's kind of synonymous in a way. I think of family as a team. So the dictionary says family is a group of one or more parents and their children living together as a unit. It's fairly traditional. And they go on to say considering blood or marriage, and I think there are very many different types of family units that they didn't go into in the dictionary. They also said the descendants of a common ancestor. My family goes way back centuries. And the third general definition was a group of related things. And I would like to extend that to a group of related people. And I don't mean related as in blood related, although they could be. I mean related because of common interests, goals, forced proximity, like your roommates that you have to live with for 10 years until you can afford your own apartment, that kind of thing. So different kinds of family. And then I asked myself, what's the difference between a team and a family? And I suggest really nothing except perhaps biology, if you're talking about your family of origin being your biological family, for example. So my observation is that an inordinate number of shows that we may share a love for, or shows that each of us may love, center around, whether they're TV or web series, or live action, or anime or animation, they often center around family, or teams. A team of people that the central character or characters begin to think of as their family. So, the neighbors I was talking about, I think of Friends, Workplace, The Office. These kinds of shows really represent family, but in different parts of our lives. And I was talking to Andy, who kindly accompanied me from the airport today, and he said, yeah, and people can be members of different families, and I absolutely agree. So I imagine that everybody here has some kind of family that they're a part of, maybe on a daily basis, maybe occasionally. I live in Toronto where I have no biological family, no legal family other than my kids, but I have what I call family of the heart, my really nearest and dearest friends who I share holidays with and special occasions. So, and I thought of a family of prison inmates. I'm sure you can think of, oh, I've already mentioned a couple of American shows, which I said I wasn't going to do, but I'm not involved in them. You can imagine, there are a few shows out there that celebrate relationships with people who are a team or a family. So I wanted to look at a couple of teams that I've had the pleasure of being a part of, and Jeremy has kindly offered to share a couple of clips with you. So first of all, I'm just going to introduce Sailor Moon, for those of you who don't know Sailor Moon. A team of schoolgirls by day, superheroines by night, or sometimes by day, and they become the Sailor Scouts, fighting the Negaverse and making the world a safer and a better place to live. So this series, to my mind, celebrates teamwork, but it also gives the opportunity for conflict, for imperfect characters, occasional infighting, exploration of themes like friendship and fear, loyalty, overcoming adversity, and more. And I know there's more, and I really look forward to hearing your thoughts around this in a few minutes. But at the end of the day, regardless of some of that conflict, which is really an important part of writing, and in most shows that we see, be it drama or comedy, there's conflict usually at the core. At the end of the day, the Sailor Scouts work together, and their strength is in their team efforts, their teamwork. So I wanted to take a look at this clip where Princess Serenity and the Scouts take on Queen Beryl. Okay, Jeremy, take it away. Thanks. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Sailor Scouts. The universe is safe again, thanks to you, my friends. I just love the spirit of friendship in Sailor Moon, and I think, we were really lucky. We didn't know it at the time, but when I auditioned for this show and when I worked with the other actors, we thought it was really a sweet show and had some good messaging, and we really enjoyed it, and we didn't realize how much it would capture the zeitgeist and the imagination of the fans. And also, I have heard it said that Sailor Moon has been considered the gateway to anime, and I think that's a real compliment, and I think there might be truth to that, and I think one of the reasons is because of the teamwork of these students who happen to identify as female girls. So they're not just male superheroes who we'd all been used to in shows prior to this. So the fact that they are a team and they have the strength and the tools that they can use collectively to fight the Negaverse, I think was new. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that a bit later too. So, and to me this clip illuminates some of the things that I think are important in teamwork. And I'm not going to mention them yet, so I'll ask you what your thoughts are. What do you think some of the qualities are that are important in creating a good team? So we have a second clip, and this is from a live-action web series that I act in and that I will likely be writing for season 2 for, called Lady Ada's Secret Society. And I don't know if any of you know this. If not, you might want to check it out on Marble Kids YouTube. We've been winning some awards and getting some heat internationally, which is really validating. And I really love this little series. And I'm just wondering if you might see any commonalities between Lady Ada's and Sailor Moon. But I'll give you a little context because I'm imagining most of you aren't familiar with it. So it takes place in a girls' school, and it centers around 4 central characters, friends, and they love STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, math. But at this particular school, they are dissuaded from studying STEM. Actually, that's not even strong enough. They are forbidden to study STEM. So some of the girls love this, and as an act of rebellion, they form this underground society, and they call it Lady Ada's Secret Society, named after a real person, Lady Ada Byron Lovelace, who is credited with inventing, does anybody know? Yes?
Well, what would become the basics of the computing system?
Yes, what would become the basics of the computing system? Thank you. Yes, so a woman. And they named their secret club Lady Ada's Secret Society. The acronym is LASS, L-A-S-S. And these girls use their science acumen to play pranks on the rest of the student body. And they have a headmistress who thwarts them at every turn, and that would be me. How fun is that? So the character's name is Mrs. Hine, that I play. She's the antagonist, which you might have guessed by now. And I just would love to play a little clip from that, if you don't mind, Jeremy.
Of course.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I could have set it up a little bit better. So the other actor in the scene with me as Mrs. Hine is the school board trustee, and she's come to evaluate the school. And the students have a little trick up their sleeves, and I'm not going to spoil it. You'll have to maybe tune in to Marble Kids YouTube if you want to see more. So the theme of family or teamwork really resonates strongly for me in this particular show. They have a common goal to create space to study the subjects that they love, which creates an opportunity for them to build on their shared interests. And it usually results in these comedy hijinks and chaos, absolute chaos. And by the end of season 1, the team of students gains a lot of ground in their struggle, leading to a very different landscape in season 2. And I just wanted to share, you're obviously not going to see that in this clip, but it gives an opportunity to explore some really important themes, some which have been discussed in Sailor Moon, and maybe you'd see some similarities in some of these particular issues, but they explore themes such as friendship, gender bias, loyalty, bullying is a big one, same-sex relationships, depression, and more. And it's funny. So I have a personal bias myself, which is I love to be involved in projects that illuminate social issues, but often do it through humor. I just think if we look at things through the lens of humor, It can really allow us to see things in a different light and entertain us at the same time. So, other shows that I've been involved in that are Canadian-based, where I would suggest there was a theme of teamwork or family, and you might know some of them. Maybe give us a shout out if you know these. Flying Rhino Junior High. Yes? Okay. A team of students, again, fighting crime and evil. The Care Bears.
Woo! Yes, yes.
A team of bears with lots of love and hugs and baby hugs and yes, and Shrieky being the villain and
I remember
for the
her.
Care Bears to band together to fight. And I wasn't in the animated series Anne, but I co-wrote the pilot episode, and I would suggest that even Anne of Green Gables has a family, but a different kind of family. So she has an adoptive family, Matthew and Marilla. She has her best friend, Diana, and she has her beloved teacher, Miss Stacy. And then, of course, there's Gilbert, sort of friend, foe, and we know where that goes. He's a very good friend later on. So I would say that's kind of a maybe family of the heart in my language. I also did the role of Princess Cece. Has anybody seen Princess Cece?
Yeah.
Yeah? So there are actually some shows that I won't mention that are live action shows right now that celebrate Princess Cece, who was a real Austrian princess. And so in the animated series, I would say one of Princess Cece's best teammates is her horse. So it doesn't always have to be human to human. I have a dog who I'm completely besotted with. So there's a lot of energy and communication, I believe, between different species as well. So Princess Cece and her horse, and sometimes her prince of a husband. Sometimes. And Traders is a live action show that I did many years ago, and this would be an example of a workplace family, and it takes place on Bay Street in Toronto in the financial industry, and focuses a lot on relationships. And I'm going to bring Andy into the conversation again. I don't know if he's here, who I rode with from the airport. And he was saying, and I would agree with him again, that one of the things he loves about Sailor Moon is, oh no, I've lost my thread. I was distracted and I lost my thread of thought. It had to do with family. And we both agreed that the Sailor Moon family of friends is imperfect, but they work through their issues, and ultimately it's about relationships. And I would agree, and that's what Andy said. He said for him, it sets Sailor Moon apart from some other anime and animation series where there are crime fighters and superheroes. But Sailor Moon also has the really strong core of friendship and connection and these relationships, and I would say I would agree. So there are a few U.S. stories I won't go into, out of respect for the striking actors and writers. But that's kind of, in terms of my connection, my professional connection to shows on the web, streaming, network. Those are the shows that stand out for me as celebrating family, teams, teamwork. Oh, and I was just going to add the commonality that I can see in some of these families is communication. I've read that time management is a good part of teamwork, but when I think of Serena and she goes, I'm going to be late for school, I think, no, time management is really not her forte. Problem solving, when the teams come together and they each have their own individual strengths and together they solve a problem. Listening, this is something I continue to learn in my personal life. I have 2 young adult kids and listening is key. Critical thinking, so being able to remove yourself from the emotional impact or from being reactive in high conflict or crisis situations, but being able to step back and make decisions calmly. Collaboration, and we see that, I think, in just about every team, whether they go through their ups and downs or not. And finally, leadership. And I'm thinking about Sailor Moon and thinking, people think of Sailor Moon as, I guess, the leader of the Sailor Scouts, but I don't think of it that way. I think of them as a team, and the story centers around Sailor Moon. We learn more about her personal life than the others generally, but that's the case with many shows. There's a central character who we get to know really well. But I don't actually think that her involvement in the Sailor Scouts is more important than any of the other Sailor Scouts. And I think that's what makes them special and what really makes them a team. So, I can't remember which politician said, it might have been Joe Clark, who was Prime Minister, lead from behind. But to me that means leadership can come out in many different forms, and you don't have to be front and center and taking center stage and taking the credit. Being part of the team and supporting the others on the team can be the key to good leadership and therefore an effective team, I think. But now enough of what I think. I'd like to know what you think. Yes?
I have a question.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay. So, sorry.
It's okay.
So, first off, huge fan. You'll always be Tsukino Usagi to me. Always. Every time I read the manga, you're the voice I hear. So my question is, someone mentioned Sailor Moon Cosmos, but have you heard of, some people like it, I'm a fan of it because it's just so, cheesy, but have you heard or seen Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon? It is the live action version of Sailor Moon.
I have not.
It's awesome. It's like early 2000s.
Yeah.
The teenagers who were casted to play the Sailor Scouts were all teenagers, so their acting wasn't the best. But one of them actually ended up being a successful actress.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the one who plays Sailor Mars, and it does base upon the manga, and I like Usagi in that one. She's less of a cryberry baby in that version, but she's still very klutzy, and she's very. There is one episode I like where, the episode in the English dub where the Negaverse kidnaps those girls, the bus episode. So they reference that in the live action, and Sailor Mars, the girls at her school accuse her of using her mystical powers to make those girls disappear, but that's not true. It's actually the Negaverse behind it. Okay. So Serena actually, there's a clip where Serena defends her against the bullies and it's like, no, that wasn't those girls, that was actually me. I heard the crows cry and I ran away, and then she's so silly. I like Usagi in that version. She's she will always be there for her friends.
She'll always be there for her friends. And you know what else you touched on? Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry about that.
Is I'm so glad that they kept her klutziness in that version. Because one of the things I love about Sailor Moon is her klutziness, and that she's late, and that she's imperfect.
Yes, she's late.
And that she has room to grow. She's not this perfect person you would expect.
Prison power,
Nice.
Oh. Yes, I know it's cheesy, but it's so good. Please watch it.
Okay.
Speaking of which, Toby Proctor, who was here last year.
Yeah.
He gave me an autograph for free because I showed him a clip from the show where Tuxedo Mask has his own transformation, where he said Tuxedo Power, and then he laughed, and then he signed my autograph saying thank you, Meatball Head. But I grew up watching the English dub, but I also watched the Japanese dub, and it's so different. They had to take out some episodes. There's one episode where Serena was at a bar. I'm not joking. That was one episode. And she used a disguise pen to pretend to be an older person. And she asked the bartender for do you have a pop drink? It's no, ma'am, we serve alcohol. That's a real episode. It was cut out.
I believe that. So I haven't seen the whole Japanese series, but when we did the dubbing, of course we would have a big screen in the room with the Japanese version on the screen. Thank you. And so that's the part of the Japanese series that I saw, the part that we were actually dubbing. But my understanding is that it was edited greatly, actually, between Japan and North America. And part of the things that were edited were sexuality.
Yes, there was.
And violence. I think those are the two main things that I recall. And I remember thinking at the time when I was starting the series, I thought, why are all these teenagers so sexualized in the short skirts? And And I had some personal criticisms of it, but then I learned that it had been edited. There were some things that had been taken out that I thought maybe were good choices. Some things that had been taken out, like more exploration of same-sex relationships, that I wish that they had left in.
Yeah,
that I think would have been helpful.
Yeah, they basically they made Uranus and Neptune incestuous cousins in the English dub when they're a same-sex couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when shows go from one culture to another. It's interesting to see what sticks, what doesn't stick. It's also now, it's over 20 years ago, so that was a different time.
They should be
having
accepting
different
now.
Conversations now.
Mhm.
At least I hope we are. So what I was going to say is I did have some criticisms just as an actor working on a piece that somebody else had written and that had been edited, and I had some questions. But I have to say, when I step back and do it like an overview, like a bird's eye view of the series, I think there are many more positive messages than detractors. Just in terms of the things I've talked about, gender equity, empowering girls.
I agree.
That kind of thing. Thank you.
Before before I go, I was gonna ask. I asked Toby Proctor this last year. I asked if Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon was gonna be dubbed in English. Would you actually like to play the role of Usagi or Serena of Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon? I'm just like, I asked a hypothetical question.
You asked him?
I asked him, and
If he'd like to play?
yeah, and he said, yeah, I would like to voice Mamoru or Darien. Yeah, and I was just asking you the same thing, like if it was, yeah.
I have a very fond connection to this series and the people who I worked with, and then the people who created it in Japan, who I've never met, but I hope to meet one day.
Okuta, her creator.
Yeah.
There's the Sailor Moon
I'd
Museum.
love to. Thank you for your thoughts. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Somebody else has. Because to me, from listening comes understanding, communication, the ability to have a conversation, to learn about someone else's experience if they're walking a different road than you. And I'm thinking for little kids, when my kids were little, I used to do something with them. They hated this, by the way. But if they were having an argument, I would ask them to sit in two chairs, and one person could talk, and the other person listened, and then the other person could talk, and they listened. And I think it might maybe hopefully help them as young adults one day, but I don't know, because I was their mother and they they didn't like to do it.
That's a good thing.
So yeah, that's just listening, I think, is one of the biggest skills that we can develop.
Thank you. My classroom is Sailor Moon themed, so I can tell my children that Sailor Moon got to tell me this.
Yeah, tell them that Sailor Moon really appreciates they have a teacher who listens to them.
Sailor Moon says, right?
Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Yeah.
Which means everybody else has to listen, so I don't know, there's something.
I actually like her advice that she gave about like don't settle for less. Yeah, I remember that. I was like, yeah.
There was somebody here who was
This
going to come
gentleman
on.
right here.
Oh, yes. Hi.
Oh, sorry, this. Yeah.
Okay. Hello. I know, it's kind of awkward.
Sorry.
Isn't it? Yeah, that's better. We can see your face.
One of the things I really liked about Sailor Moon when I was growing up, and when it was initially airing on YTV, because I'm not old.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Me
I
too.
didn't have like a whole ton of friends. Although one of the ones I had is right over here. We've been friends since third grade. Cool. But one of the things I really loved about Sailor Moon and the team and teamwork is that they were such great friends with each other. And whenever something would happen, like whenever they were like having a little conflict between each other, part of the B plot or whatever, one of the group would always step up and be a mediator and keep them strong as a group. And it really, to a certain degree, it extended into relationships too, because Serena and Darien have a sometimes rocky relationship, and they can rely on their friends to help get them through it. And so, keeping together with that is one of the things that I really, really loved. It's one of the things I would watch it every day, just because of how good their friendship was.
And you think that it helped you navigate your friendships and relationships? You think that the modeling...
To a degree, I mean, yeah, to a degree,
Okay.
but mostly back then I was kind of lonely, and so seeing these great friends on TV was something that was really important. So.
That's really beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing that. I love that story. Yeah. What's your name, by the way? I didn't hear.
My name's Ryan.
Hi, Ryan? Ryan, nice to meet you.
There's like 20 minutes.
Okay, all right. I think there are a few people over here. Did you want to say something? Come on up. Oh, that's okay. Okay.
So Terry, I remember you finding out surprisingly you were the voice director apparently on Flying Rhino 2 as one of the main characters. So that was a huge responsibility. Did you have a lot of say in a lot of episodes? Because you were like the redhead Lydia, and like there was like this one episode that I think it could still hit hard today, where she had to get, I think, like headgear, and they used the whole episode with a Frankenstein's monster, and they woven, I think, a theme about not judging others, and apparently it was really a big, because imagine trying to dissolve two storylines in one. And there was a lot of teamwork in that, but do you remember like if you had like input directing like episodes like that, if like say your character got like a bigger role, like in the case of like that episode?
Wow, what a good question. And you are really up to date on my professional history. That's really impressive.
I just tried to find what you were involved in actually, and I realized, oh yeah, I grew up with that show a lot, but they always aired it mostly towards the end on 11:30, and I was in school.
Yeah, okay. What's your name?
It's Brandon.
Brandon, I'm Terry. Nice to meet you. So the answer to your question is, you probably remember that episode better than I do. Sometimes when you've just done a lot of shows and a lot of episodes over the years, it's hard to remember specifics, but what I can tell you is this. I voice directed every episode and every character, including myself. So there wasn't anybody else in the booth. So how it works, Brandon, I'm just going to leave you with that. If you want to hear a little story about how I combined those two roles.
Yeah.
Cinderella. I dropped my shoe. So maybe many of you know this already, but just basically, the voice director would sit in a sound booth with the engineer, and then there's a glass, and then the actor or the actors are on the other side of the glass. And if it's original animation, like Flying Rhino Junior High was, which means the script comes before the visual elements arrive, which is different from Sailor Moon, because the visual element was there. So we were looking at a screen with the Japanese version and trying to match the movement of our mouths to the Japanese character, to the Japanese graphics that were on the screen. But with original animation, it gives you a little more latitude, if you will, because you're reading from a script and you're just creating it from the words. So you can stretch out a vowel as long as you want, or give it an intonation or a tone that seems right to you as an actor, and you're not trying to match a picture on the screen. So that is really fun as a director and an actor, to have that breadth of latitude, as I say. So I would sit in the booth, and the actors usually, so there may be 4 main characters, right? The students anyway, and the other 3 would be in the booth, and I would give them direction, or they would come, they're all excellent actors, they would come with their own ideas, and I might just tweak them a little bit. And then if it was a scene where it was mostly just me, I would often be in there by myself. And I would just read through it, and I'd make notes and say, okay, Terry, you can do this or that, or I think I'd like to change this. And I'd say to the engineer, can we try it again? And I'd keep track of what I was doing. So you learn to kind of try to be objective about your own work, which is not always easy, but it's a really good way to learn and improve. And I also really welcomed suggestions from the engineer, or if the other actors were in this scene with me and they had something to say. I'm a fairly collegial director. I want to know what the actors want to do because I trust them, and they are storytellers in their own right. And so generally it was a pretty harmonious, I'm going to say, I think always it was a pretty harmonious situation. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Glad to have done it. Did that answer your question, Brandon?
Yeah, Terry. I was just a bit surprised that you had people like come up with those different characters. I always was a bit surprised that, I don't know if you remember it, that Earl, voiced by Richard Bensley, had like that really nasally voice. Was that by accident? Because I remember the wiki page once compared it to Slim Shady. I
didn't know that. No, he's such a good actor, and he just threw a few different voices out, and that was the one that seemed to work for the character. So, and he worked so well with Ron Rubin. They were so much fun together in the booth. You can imagine, they're so talented. And Ron Rubin plays Artemis in Sailor Moon.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Do you think possibly those two are still active and may come? Because I want to shake Richard's hand and say thank you for not blowing your voice out doing that.
I see him, I'll tell him. I don't know what Rick's up to. I know Ron Rubin is very engaged still as an actor and a vocal coach. And so if any of you are in the world of anime, he helps people put together demo reels and that kind of thing.
Oh, that's
Thanks,
so
Brandon,
cool.
for all the history, all the anime history. I will be downstairs.
I was gonna say fun fact.
Hi, Fiona. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Jonah.
Hi, Jonah.
When I was younger, there were a handful of shows that I was sort of curated, allowed to watch, like Kratz Creatures and Inspector Gadget, and of course Sailor Moon. And one thing that I noticed in Sailor Moon that doesn't seem to get talked about too much is that the diversity in them, in that it's not all, a group of nerds, a group of jocks. You have academics, you have people that are more sporty, you have people that are maybe a little more traditional or religious. And it's something you don't really think about as a kid, but it's very good to know that you don't have to have the same thoughts and mindset as other people to be really good friends or to be an even better team as a result.
That is such an interesting observation, and I'm so glad you said that, because sometimes I think of Sailor Moon as having very similar characters. I mean, certainly racially, it's a pretty white group of characters, which once again surprised me coming out of Japan, but I know that's not unusual, or it wasn't then. But I hadn't thought so much about diversity in terms of character and values and abilities. I'm not really talking about physical ability, but that would be one. But as you say, academic ability, athletic ability, that kind of thing. So I think that's a really good point. I'm glad that you shared that. And so interesting that you would remember that years later. So it obviously impacted on you in a certain way, right?
Yes,
You know
yes
what?
it did.
I'm going to do this. I actually don't know the best way to do it. Thank you. Thanks for saying hi.
All right.
Come on up. Hi.
The thing that just popped into my head, and I think that I'm remembering this correctly. So I'm gonna cite another series you worked on, Canadian series. Do any of you know of Today's Special?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay. Terry was on Today's Special. It was an episode where Muffy the mouse had to get her tonsils taken out. And you were a nurse in that
I
one.
was a nurse. I
Yeah.
can't believe you were referencing this.
Yeah. So teamwork. I mean, they're family when you think
Yes.
about it. You have a mannequin that comes to life at nighttime in a department store. He can't leave. His family is Jody, the designer. You have Sam, the night watchman. You have Muffy, the rhyming mouse. And I don't know, it just kind of popped into my head. We're talking about teamwork and stuff,
Yeah.
as well as the actors and stuff, working with puppeteers. Like, obviously, there's kind of like a little dance you guys have to do to work around each other, because you have the puppets up here, and if you're like, that's a form of teamwork. But
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
So.
It's a great example because it's a slightly different scenario. It's not a human, it's a human actually, puppet, but an animal, but it's also an inanimate object that we are imbuing with human characteristics. So yeah, that's really interesting.
It's very random, I'm sorry. But
It's very random, and it's many decades old, so I'm amazed that you remember that. That was developed and directed by Clive Vanderbroek, who's a prolific composer, songwriter, television director, and all-around good guy.
And I believe that there's a museum that was set up in Toronto recently for some of the television history, and they have some of the puppets down there.
Oh, I
Same
didn't
with
know.
YTV, Zone, and all that kind of stuff.
Thank you for telling me. I'm going to check that out.
I think it runs to the end of this month, and of course I'm going to Toronto for our sister convention next 2 weeks from now. But it's done by then, so I'm gonna miss
too
out.
bad.
Yeah. So
Maybe try to arrange to bring it here or something. That'd be fun.
that'd be awesome. Anyway, I just wanted to.
Yeah, thanks. That surprised me. I didn't think anybody would know about that. Are there any other questions or thoughts? And
We probably have time for about one more because we're just at the end of the panel here.
come on up. Hi. What a nice candy floss colored sweater. That's so fun. Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. What's your name?
I'm Leon.
Leon?
Leon.
Hi, Leon. Hi.
I'm trying to think of how to word this. I had it in my head.
It's okay. I do that too.
One thing I really noticed about Sailor Moon and its portrayal of teamwork, one of the really healthy things that they showed about their friendships and their relationships, is they would have huge blow-up arguments and disagreements, and there would be periods where they didn't even want to talk to each other. And I always thought it was really nice that they would show these girls having these conversations and resolving their arguments and going back to being friends, because I feel like a lot of times in real life, a lot of people think that these big arguments have to be the end of a friendship or an end of a team or a relationship, when it doesn't have to be. So it was nice seeing in this show I grew up with these healthy representations of resolving conflict and coming back together as friends and team.
I love that. And do you think that helped you navigate your friendships? Did you take those thoughts with you into your relationships?
I like to think I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have a question for you. I wanted to ask if there was any particular lesson about teamwork and friendship that you took away from working on Sailor Moon.
Well, I don't know if anybody knows this, but I was not the first Sailor Moon. Traci Moore did the first 6 episodes.
Yep.
And Traci and I were in community theater together as teenagers in Calgary, Alberta.
That is adorable.
Fellow Calgarian, I'm from Calgary too.
I don't think I remember that, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So I like to think that that these threads of connections that we have over the years stay with us and kind of maybe leave our lives and come back. So, I mean, it was really bizarre that Traci left because of artistic differences, but then they immediately needed to cast someone, and I had no idea what the show was, and I hadn't known that Traci had been doing it, and anyway, all of a sudden, I was doing it. And Traci and I have this history. And then here's the other little piece of synchronicity. So I had originated the roles of Baby Hugs and Shrieky in Care Bearers, and then I moved to New York City, and for a long time I would catch a very inexpensive plane to Buffalo and then a bus back to Toronto, and I'd come back to Toronto and I would subsidize my New York habit. But after a while I was cast in a play off Broadway and I couldn't make all the recording sessions for Care Bears. And guess who took over my roles? Traci Moore. So, you know, I don't know if it's a lesson, but I think it's kind of interesting. If you live long enough, you kind of, friends come in and out of your life, and they might just be friends for a particular work situation. They might end up being really close bosom buddy friends, best friends. I guess I would say that. I've learned that in life, it's really important to have different kinds of friends for different activities in different parts of your life. And I am very blessed. I have some amazing friends, and I spend time with them in work, in play, in self-reflection, in healing from crises in our lives, in my book group, sharing love of the written word, work friendships. I told you my family of the heart. So I guess that would be what I would take away, that friendships can take many forms, And you never know when someone might come back into your life, so be kind. Thank you. That's a nice way to end. So I really appreciate everyone's comments about teamwork and these shows, and you've taken me a little bit down memory lane. Thank you. And so we'll have some more time to talk if you're around for the next couple of days. So tomorrow we have a panel
First thing in the morning on strong female characters.
It's early in the morning, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's early, but hey,
10 o'clock.
we're up
You
at
can
like
do it.
We're up at 6 behind the scenes doing convention stuff, so if we could do it, I'm sure you guys can. And that's another thing.
And
with
I'm not
teamwork
alone on
conventions.
that panel.
No, Caitlin Bairstow is going to be joining her as well too. So
Yeah, so that'll be fun. And then and what did you say? Did I cut you off?
Oh,
Did you say
that's
something else?
just another example of the teamwork thing. I don't know why I never thought about it before. Conventions. People working behind the scenes
Oh,
at conventions.
of course.
We're like a little family, we really are. And with my programming team, I always tell them, you can plan and plan and plan everything to the minute. And then when it comes to the day of, throw it out and jump in the trenches together because nothing's gonna go exactly the way you want it to. So, but it brings you closer, and it's just like with Sailor Moon. They go through a lot of things and it just brings them closer together. And so, yeah, so.
Well, it's been fun so far, and there's more to come. And Sunday afternoon at 4:30, we have a third, or I'm at least in a third panel on the healing power of Sailor Moon animation, and I really love this format where I get to hear from you too. So if you're interested, come join us Sunday as well.
And don't forget, she has an autograph session coming up in about 25 minutes. So you can meet her downstairs as well.
Does everybody know where that is?
In the vendor
don't.
hall. Autographs. I think most of them know.
How much is the autograph?
Okay.
I don't know how much the autographs are.
We say 25. But
So-
what did you want to say? The
Sure, yeah. So trying to sort of keep commensurate with the other artists here. It's $25 an autograph, but I have always, at every conference I've been to, supported different organizations that generally support youth in accessing the arts. So a good portion of that will go to Art for You, which supports youth in under-resourced areas and gives them access to the arts.
Okay.
Okay, so I look forward to seeing some of you. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.